And then when the pandemic happened, right, we always had Cemboo on the shelf. So in 2020, interesting enough, the world's coming to an end. We're losing contracts, and everyone is, spinning out of control. 26 high schools hired us where we thought we were going out of business, and we brought in $120,000 of revenue in 40 days. And we did virtual graduations for Deer of Holy Name, schools down in Philadelphia, and 26 different high schools in Bergen County, New Jersey. That's when we took Cemboo off the shelf and said, this is a product that we know we can bring into the 21st century.
All right, so boom, welcome back to another episode of the Black Caliber Podcast. Today, we have Hayden Craddolph in the building, founder and CEO of Cemboo, creator of Haydenfilms online film festival, and someone who's been in the indie film game long before streaming made it cool. He's helped storytellers get their work in front of the world and has helped pushing boundaries in how creators share, protect, and monetize their art. We're going to talk about the grind, the wins, the headspace, and what it takes to keep going in this industry. But, first things first, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I know things got pushed back, so it's a hectic day, regular day, you just chilling or...
Yeah, well, today was a good day because we had a Zoom for a potential Cemboo client up in the Bergen County, New Jersey area. So we were happy about that meeting. Then it got pushed back. Then it was coming up to the podcast, and I said, well, we have a business client and a podcast starting to collide, but it all worked out.
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you here.
Yep.
This almost was a solo episode, but that didn't make it out. So you do film and you were interested in film. So where do you think that started? Where did this...
Real good question. I mean, being a youngster, I was always obsessed with film. Growing up, watching film, rewatching them, rewinding the old school VHS, DVDs, looking for the, continuity errors. I said, wait a minute, he had the jacket on, now it's off, and the tie is on the back side of his neck. So I was always obsessed with just watching film and watching stories. Obviously, one of the films that made the biggest impact in, a producer, filmmaker, George Lucas, right? Star Wars. So it just connected to me in terms of that, hero's journey and everything like that. So it's just something that I was always constantly gravitating towards, was film throughout all of my youth. Going into college, watching movies constantly, it was just one of my pastimes. Parallel, I was an athlete, but then I was, I was getting my finance degree. So really I had these three separate worlds. It was almost kind of like the multiverse of Hayden. I had track and field, I had film, and then I had what I was learning about business, because that entrepreneurship was always inside my body and soul when I was a youngster.
Okay. So when do you think it started to come into fruition?
In terms of business ideas and concepts, or the film?
The film.
All right. So the film actually, so after graduating from Kutztown University the first time, because I came back for my master's. I'll tell you how that happened real quick. So when I leave, I had an opportunity. I got a job. I got two jobs, one in the Lehigh Valley and one in New York City. And being right out of college, I said, I'm going for the New York City job.
New York City. I was like, I hope you took New York.
And it was Manhattan. So I got a job as a foreign exchange broker on Wall Street, right out of college. And however, I didn't have the budget to go live in Manhattan. So I got up at 4:30 in the morning on the 5:30 bus at Transbridge right over Bethlehem, and got dropped off at Trinity Church every day for about 2 years, going to New York City. However, one day coming out of New York City, our bus ended up getting stuck in a snowstorm. And we're on this bus for like 12 hours. And it was the worst bus ride, on the side of the road, snowed in. And I said, man, this drive to New York is really starting to get a little dicey. So there was two ways to really grow your portfolio and your book of business in the Wall Street game. It's either bring in more clients or get your MBA. And so I always had a passion for, furthering my education. So my initial vision was, maybe I should, get my GMAC and, get this MBA, because I feel leadership in me and I want to grow. That didn't happen. After I started thinking about my MBA, I said, I just don't know if I can continue going onward in New York City. and it made me come back to the Lehigh Valley. And that's when I started just thinking more about film, and I wanted to be a director, and I wanted to do stories. And that was the beginning stages of it. And I'll take a breath for you real quick if you'd like.
No, that's fine.
I'm good?
I'm interested.
All right, nice. So ultimately, when I was back home, I was already going through my savings, and I said, uh-oh, I got to look for a job. And then I found a finance manager position that, I have a finance degree. And that led to another role. But I still had this itch. I said, you know what? Let me go back to Kutztown. I want to take a couple theater classes. That's it. I just want to understand what an actor goes through. And someone in the admissions office said, well, why are you going to go take some theater classes? You should go over to, a telecommunications program. I said, what the heck is a telecommunications program? So I go over, meet Dr. Kin's father. He takes me on a tour of the studio. I said, this was here the whole time? I went here the first time? So long story short, he ended up offering me a graduate assistantship program. I would be able to come into the program. It then changed names to electronic media. And that's where I was able to really work with a mentor that allowed me to think about these film concepts and ideas. And so what happened was the first project that I was going to do was going to be a character that had these hallucinations. And the hallucinations themselves were going to be a film contest where filmmakers from around the world were going to do their adaptations of the guidelines and the dream sequences. And they were going to submit that back to me, part of the contest, to be this interactive movie experience. Well, I pitched the idea to the Small Business Development Center. I pitched it to my thesis advisor. He goes, this is the most innovative thing in the world. We got to do this. I said, yeah, let's do it. Anyway, once we started pitching the idea to more people, they said, let me ask you a quick question. Who do you know in Hollywood? I said, I don't know anyone in Hollywood. What else have you done creatively? I said, what are you talking about? I'm working with like 8 professors over here on this concept with this interactive movie. You don't know anyone in Hollywood. You haven't worked on anything else creatively. So what I'm hearing you're going to do is you're going to become this famous director dude that's going to go off and work with all these filmmakers. I said, I see the constructive criticism you're giving me. What if I take the money that I raise and I create an online film festival and I go after the filmmakers that I wanted to work with anyway by offering them technology and a $10,000 grand prize for money that I raised for my own project? I'll give it out to some filmmakers out there. And that's what ended up happening. So in 2004, we had our first call for entries for the first online film festival. We received films from all over the world, USC, NYU, Columbia, some of the best film makers in the world at the time. And we took those films and we put the top 50 films on technology we created through the Haydenfilms Online Film Festival. Those films then streamed for 60 days, leveraging our own proprietary voting system that we created at the time. And then we took the top 4 filmmakers based on online voting, and we gave them a real traditional brick and mortar red carpet experience at the Directors Guild of America Theater in New York City, where we had about 300 guests, and then we gave out the first check for the best short film based on online voting back in 2005.
That's super dope. So my next question would be, in that process, what were some of the things where it was like you felt like you were struggling and or it wasn't as easy as you thought it would be? Or even just the mental aspects, especially as somebody who's creating something now, it's like having to think and do all of these things, have all these different avenues and bringing them together to make sure it's coherent.
Well, the interesting part of the story is every single thing about that 2-year period of developing that software and developing the team. So I had all the support from my professors. So that really motivated me in terms of going out and trying to embark on this process. And the research that I did at the time said, oh, there's a company called Without a Box. This is the company that you're going to want to create an account with because it's going to help you aggregate content. You can put a listing there, and filmmakers are going to submit their screeners with a check in the mail, old school. So
wait. So let's break down what you just said.
Yeah,
because
this is like
I'm following.
This is like selling mixed tapes out of the trunk.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
No, so not like you can continue, but just let's break it down so it will be a little easier to digest.
Yeah.
Because you start using your terms aggregate.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, great. I'll break it down for you. So there was a company back in the early 2000s that was called Without a Box. And Without a Box at the time partnered with more traditional brick and mortar film festivals. Like the Reading Film Festival is a traditional brick and mortar film festival talking about the economic development of this location, right? So we created a listing on Without a Box to announce our call for entries for our festival. So the first big roadblock was we got a letter from Without a Box that said, we don't partner with online film festivals. I said, whoa, oh my gosh. I went back to my professor. I said, if we can't get this partnership off the ground because they're going to help us, receive films, right? Aggregating the films, the filmmakers are going to submit based on the listing that they saw. I did the first thing, wrote an email to Without a Box. I said, well, it's interesting enough that you're giving our festival a decline, but right now Sundance has an online film festival listed on Without a Box. So I literally had to go into this almost kind of like an argument mode, like I thought was going to be like an attorney or something, drafting this email, say, well, let me show you the receipts, right? I'll contemporize it. Let me show you the receipts of why we should be approved. They wrote back, yeah, your listing's going to be approved. But if we didn't get that approval, the whole trajectory of the festival may not have gone the way it would have, the way it ended up going.
Okay. So after you had that first film festival and then you moved forward, when did you decide to start Cemboo, or where in this journey did this next venture come up?
So Cemboo didn't happen until a few years later in terms of the germ of the idea, and it wasn't even Cemboo at the time. I'll tell you what we called it in the early days where the germ finally came out. So the second year, we did the event in New York City again. And by the third year, what's important about the third year is that, Senator Michael Opake, right? The Opake Institute. Well, Senator Michael Opake happened to be really good friends with Michael Attardi, who ended up doing a great film project that went on to, garner 87 different animation awards in that third season of our festival. So one of the things that we wanted to do that was different is not just showcase the top 4 filmmakers. We wanted to kind of hand pick a film to be like a bonus showcase. And because Senator Michael Opake at the time was really good friends with Michael Attardi from his Kutztown University, well, it was Kutztown State College at the time when he was there with Andre Reed. But I ended up going to Senator Michael Opake's office and saying, hey, we're going to showcase Michael Attardi's film at the DGA in New York City. Could you be a special guest? He ended up coming up and surprising Michael Attardi with a statewide accommodation about his film project. That we knew that particular year that our festival was getting bigger, the technology that we were doing in-house could be used by other festivals, right? So that was our initial germ of the idea. So what we did that particular next season, which was a lull between season 3 and season 4 of the festival, but we didn't call them seasons, we call it Haydenfilms 3.0, Haydenfilms 4.0, right? So it was always kind of like a technology upgrade, Microsoft 95, 98, XP. So that's how the concept was. So what ended up happening is we did what was called Haydenfilms on the Road Showcase, where we took some of our award-winning films and we partnered with the Southside Film Festival in Bethlehem at Lehigh University. So we had like a Haydenfilms night. So we finally took our content on the road. And once we started talking to the Southside Film Festival, they were like, man, we really like your technology. We wish we could have some technology like that. So that gave us the germ of the idea, which we called at the time the partner channel solution. So the partner channel solution was where we were going to create code that I would give to your website. So it would be embedded on your website, and your content then would be hosted still on our servers, but the content would be deployed on your website. So that was the germ of the idea in 2007. We didn't get it off the ground. We did some testing. However, the germ of the idea was so solid, and it just became this passion. Like, we know that this is going to be something that we could do one day. Fast forward 4 more years, and it would always, the idea of having these partner channels with other festivals was the germ of the idea. So finally, we ended up talking to Millersville University at the time, and they had a program called the Software Productization Competition, right? And so they were doing like grants for feasibility studies. So that's when we pitched our idea for Cemboo to them, and we ended up getting a very small micro grant to do some preliminary research in 2011. Didn't go anywhere. It was just preliminary research, went back on the shelf. And then when the pandemic happened, right, we always had Cemboo on the shelf. So in 2020, interesting enough, the world's coming to an end. We're losing contracts, and everyone is, spinning out of control. We had recently worked with some Kutztown University students on a research project for a company in New Jersey called All Ability Sports at the time. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to create this sports facility where they would have after-school programs focusing on basketball and leadership and all these different things. And so at the time, we had two business students from Kutztown doing preliminary research on what kind of video systems should be in the sports complex. So we had found this company called Sling Studio that we referenced to the client, right, All Ability Sports, and said, hey, this might be a product that will do the live streaming that you were envisioning. Fast forward, pandemic happens, we get a phone call from the client. Hey, we got a phone call from high school XYZ. They were wondering if we could live stream their graduations. And I said, well, we don't have that technology and we're trying to figure it out. Long story short, we put a little demo reel together, submitted it. We ended up getting co-hired with this other company, All Ability Sports, which ended up becoming All Abilities Live. 26 high schools hired us where we thought we were going out of business, and we brought in $120,000 of revenue in 40 days. And we did virtual graduations for Deerfield, Holy Name, schools down in Philadelphia, and 26 different high schools in Bergen County, New Jersey. That's when we took Cemboo off the shelf and said, this is a product that we know we can bring into the 21st century.
Okay. So even though you just gave like the inception. Mm-hmm. So now in the current times, what is Cemboo? I know Cemboo stands for, what is it? Control. What is it? He gave it to me. No, it's not all on here.
It's not on there. It's on the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
So Cemboo, C is control, E education, the M rather, monetization, and the B with the infinity is boo, is a play on distribution. So control, monetize, and distribute your content while maintaining 100% of your ad revenue if you're a publisher or if you want to manage your payments. So it allows, publishers and content creators the ability to launch their own Netflix environment. So instead of installing, videos, embedding a YouTube video or a Vimeo video, you're actually deploying a full Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime environment on your website.
Okay. So how much more development needed to be built out since COVID? And what was even the process of acquiring these developers, and how did you go about building this tech company, especially since you said you're a finance guy? With film interest.
Yeah, so it was a challenge. So really what happened after, it was late into August of 2020, we ended up writing a small grant to Kutztown University. So what they did is they handpicked a research professor, to join our team. And it really was just, again, a secondary exploratory feasibility, but with much more teeth. So the professor at Kutztown, Dr. P, what she did is she created this really advanced survey. And not only did she put together a great survey, she did two of them actually. And one survey was for publishers around the country. So people that had a library and owned a library and was using different systems like Vimeo or YouTube or whatever. And then we also did a survey on actual end users, people that consume content like Twitch, videos, live streams, whatever. So all that data then came in, and for the next 6 months to 8 months, we worked on putting together our first white paper. That was Dr. P, Haydenfilms at the time, Haydenfilms Institute, and we had 3 other master students in computer science and blockchain technology that worked on this paper in a collaborative format. So what we did with the research is it allowed us to say, okay, if this research is true, then maybe we can mock out some different visions for the contemporary Cemboo and how it would work. Because we already had some initial schematics of what we thought Cemboo was going to look like back in 2011 that never came to fruition. This time we really amped it up and took it to the next level. Once that white paper was done, ironically, it went on the shelf again. So it's on the shelf, and it wasn't until we had the need to bring in a social media, the social media management team member, and ironically, someone from the Opaque Institute. She applied. First interview was on Zoom. Second interview was in person. And then we brought her in the third time. I said, do you have like a regular portfolio, old school portfolio? Oh, I have all that. So she comes into the third meeting with her portfolio. She opens it up, and we're paging through some of the projects that she worked on. And I said, what is this? She goes, oh, that's the Opaque Institute. I said, well, tell me all about it. Yeah, I was one of the first fellows, and I'm paging through it. I said, Senator Mike Opaque? I said, can I meet the people at the Opaque Institute? They ended up coming to visit. So actually, Michelle and Katie, if you guys are listening, they came up to visit us at our HFI office. And that was the first time we had a net new pitch of Cemboo in a contemporary time frame, which was about 2 years ago, and a little over 2 years ago now. And they said, hey, we think your project has some value. We'd love to bring it in under the Spark Incubator and everything of that nature. And that's the building blocks of the white paper. And then we started working with Opaque. Then we went out and put our financial decks together, and ended up raising a decent family and seed round, like family and friends round rather. And then also got supported by Ben Franklin Technologies partners as well. So all those monies that we had to go after wasn't easy, because we just came off of the white paper. We had a vision, but we needed the money to develop. And it all came together. So we're not out of the woods yet, because the MVP just was finished in July, and we're going to hopefully start for our new fundraising round, which is a seed round, in first quarter of 2026.
Okay. And it's dope seeing how things went from an idea and even all the ups and downs to creating something that now you can even say is profitable and people are worth invested in.
Sure.
So since you're a movie guy, and I always ask this about a song, what movie would you say describes your life?
What movie?
Or who you are?
Well, I mean,
Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
No, I'm going to go old school. I have some alter egos, and one of them is, one of my favorite characters in the DC universe is Superman. And, I just think that what Christopher Reeve did for that first superhero movie, and how it really broke out and created the whole genre, really. Superman, the movie, 1978. And I think if you look at that particular story and the authenticness of who he is as a person who's trying to do great and always having the ultimate test, right? You got to save Lois over here, or we got this other, missile's going to, blow up, and destroy California. You can't be in two places at one time. So I connect with those challenges that Superman has, because he's always put to the ultimate test, and he always has to, quote unquote, put on the red cape or even the black cape sometimes for the extra solar radiation to save the day. So I connect really well with that character, and it's a movie that's the story of my life.
Okay, he's Superman. All right,
I'm in Clark Kent mode right now.
You Clark Kent? I believe that. So now moving forward in what you're doing, and even Haydenfilms and the industry and Cemboo, what is it that you would like to see?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're hoping to continue to do, right, October of this year, we're going to be at Temple University for our second screenplay competition. So each year we do a screenplay competition and a film festival, right? And then sometimes we take time off. So going into 26 and 27, we're going to take another hiatus to let the technology, catch up. But we're going to be down there. We're going to use the Cemboo technology to live stream a real, true software pitch fest. So there's going to be 20 screenwriters that are going to pitch their initial idea for like 90 seconds. Then it's going to go from 20 to 10. Then the 10 people will get a bigger pitch, sit down, feedback from judges, and then it'll culminate to an award ceremony. Well, the top 4 screenwriters will be selected, and then one screenwriter will walk away with $10,000. But the whole thing's going to be live streamed by Cemboo. So we're looking at these hybrid co-branded experiences that we want to take around the country. And 2027, we're looking to hopefully do it in Austin, Texas, because they have South by Southwest there. They have the Austin Film Festival there. And then, of course, it's really becoming big in the tech space. So we feel that our brand needs to be mobile. And so, for example, what we want to do with Cemboo is continue to partner with library owners, higher education in general, film festivals, and go on the road and showcase our product. From a filmmaker perspective, I think what it does for a filmmaker is what we're seeing, what we've seen during the research phase is a filmmaker doesn't necessarily want their film on YouTube, right? Why? Because if you're a documentary filmmaker or if you're a genre filmmaker, you want your film to be part of your peers. So if the Reading Film Festival, the Allentown Film Festival, Haydenfilms, whomever uploads our technology, then that means all the films that are short content or documentary content can be all in this nice vehicle. And then that benefits the filmmaker, benefits the audience because it puts a lot of like-minded content in one general area. Or if you happen to be someone that has a training company who wants all their videos to be there, or a podcast company, it's very flexible. But from a filmmaker perspective, we want the technology to allow that film to go wider through the technology, and so that they can have their film be recognized.
Okay. And is there anything that you would want to say to any aspiring filmmakers, artists, or even people who have an idea? What would it be?
Well, I mean, no matter what any filmmaker does, I think part of it, ironically, you just mentioned the finance. Learn about business. I mean, a lot of creative people are just so focused on their creativity, if it's art, dance, theater, filmmaking, editing, all of that's great. Hone on your skills, follow your passion, follow what you're good at. But at the same time, try to surround yourself with good business people, people that are going to at least give you an overview of business so that you can leverage some of those skills, even though it's not your passion. But filmmaking and building these projects all need resources. And if you're just thinking about the art and only the art, it's not going to give you that opportunity. So, partner with your local universities. There's all types of different programs that universities have, small business development centers, the Opaque Institute. These are really good places for students, filmmakers, to work on their craft and learn about some of the other disciplines, which will get their film to a higher level, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's dope. Because some of my mentor always said, he was like, well, if you like art, go to school for business because you're going to do art regardless.
Exactly.
So at least learn something else, how to make money off of it.
Exactly.
All right, and with that, just thank you for coming on. Pleasure
well, I have
to have
one
you.
more.
I was going to say, isn't there something else we got to say?
So I have another big announcement. It's going to be a 2-part announcement. Announcement number 1 is you're going to get your own Cemboo premium license at no charge. We're going to give that to you to test drive the technology so you and our tech team can work on launching your new podcast Netflix environment and migrating your long form content over to your new environment and working on all your YouTube videos and your social micro style. And then, of course, I'm going to give you a special discount for any of your listeners out there that want their own access to Cemboo at no charge for 6 months. I'll give you that discount so you can put it in the comments and everything once you load everything.
Code. See that? We getting official around here. We ain't used to get those.
Yep.
We making it. Yes, sir. Now, I'm actually really excited to hear that and even be able to offer your services and then help anybody who watches this show who wants these services.
Exactly.
So I'm greatly honored to even be considered for this. So.
You're welcome, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, and with that, could I just get you to say this is the Black Caliber Podcast?
This is the Black Caliber Podcast.
Right, distinction at its finest. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.